he left his wife, and after that, what he did not marry again or go something. He just took sannyas. So when somebody has that level of realization, okay, now I'm enough is enough, then that is okay. He can leave it. And another example of Prabhupada also. They say Prabhupada wife said, Prabhupada asked tea or me, and then Prabhupada left. No, Prabhupada also, he didn't like his wife in the beginning. He asked his father, should I marry again? I said, no, no, this is good only. You didn't like, so better you continue so that it will be helpful. And after 30 years of staying, where she did not cooperate when the programs were happening at his house, she didn't even come out also. After that, Prabhupada left, but where he left? For taking sannyas, Vanaprastha sannyas. So, man's bondage and bewilderment is not due to attachment to the objects, but as much as it is due to his association with women and to his association with men who associate with women. That means here the bondage is very strong because attachment is both sided. Especially with the object, it is only one side. Object don't love us, but the attachment for in this case is one want to give up, another cannot give up. So then it continues to remain like that. It is both sides. The knot is very strong to cut. And when it comes to people who associate with women is because they create the desire in our heart, because they have a strong desire to associate with women. And if you associate with that womanizers, there is so much possibility of their creating a desire in our heart, so that's very dangerous. And then the next is the hypocritically devout. Those who accept the external signs of dharma but do not actually follow dharma are called dharmadvajis. And there are two categories. One is hypocrites or the cheaters, and there are the fools and the cheated. So first is they don't hear the. So for us, we should not hear from here and there. We should be sticking. We should be very focused because in the market there are so many hypocrites and cheaters. We should not come under the category of fools and getting cheated. So somebody may say, "Arey, why we should not hear from anybody and anybody?" Because Srila Prabhupada said one should learn to pick up gold from a filthy place. Yes, that is true. When there is gold mountain, that is we have so much of our acharyas writing and ISKCON desiratory, why we need to go to filthy place to search a gold? You already have a mountain. And then even somebody says, okay, but I'll try to get some gold. But how can you trust your our discrimination? We actually cannot discriminate between gold and filth, because anything we may think it is gold, but it can be very dangerous. We may not know only. We have example of such great acharyas like Raghunath Bhatta Goswami. He could not identify that the that Ramchandra Kaviraj was a Mayavadi, and we have Bhagavan Acharya, and there is Ramchandra Vishwas. He was always chanting the name of Ram. He could not identify. And there is Bhagavan Acharya's brother Gopal. Only Swarup Damodar could understand that he is having all these Mayavadi tinges. Other devotees were appreciating. So, for such a great personalities, also, of course, they are setting example for us that it's so dangerous we cannot discriminate. And then somebody may say, okay, do you think that wisdom is only hidden in Vaishnava, Gaudiya Vaishnava, Parampara only, not everybody else? No, if you accept that Prabhupada has wisdom and Acharyas have wisdom, then first let us get all the wisdom they wanted to give. Why we need to go to some other place and search something else? And and another thing is when this type of people are there, we should not criticize them in front of common people. To common man, we should not criticize Dharmadvajis, but among devotees we should warn. Why? Because uh, if we because the common man, they actually maintain a respect. They have some respect for them, and if they see that we are criticizing, they think why these people are they are criticizing sadhus. It will be difficult. We should not criticize in front of common people, and don't criticize them. At the same time, we maintain a respectful distance, and then don't try to take nourishment from them, especially all these dharmadvajis. Then we have the last category, the ill-behaved, foolish outcasts. So these people are eating meat, drinking wine, are not situated in varnashram dharma, unregulated character and all. And by associating with them, the mind becomes polluted. And but if those persons become faithful in devotional service by associating with a Vaishnava, then their association is considered auspicious. So we have this shlokas from Bhagavad Gita. Apichet sudracharo bhajate vamanya bhag sadhareva samtabha samyak vyavastha Kshipram bhavati dharmatma sasya shantati gacchati kaunte pratijanehi name bhakta pranashyati. And we have Jata Shaddhamatkatasu Nirvinna Sharva Karmashu. So these are from Bhagavatam. So where a person is trying to practice pure devotional service, we should understand, even though he has some impurities and some anarthas that are exhibited, very soon he will be free from it. We should never criticize seeing that. The conclusion is that the association of pious and sinful persons who are bereft of Krishna consciousness is undesirable. On the other hand, the association of persons who are sinful yet devoted to the Lord is desirable. And then in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Rupa Goswami quotes that it is preferable to remain within the cage of blazing fire than to have the misfortune of living in association with persons who are opposite to thinking of Lord. So he feels that better to stay because he don't want to contaminate his consciousness. Basically, that is what the point is. We don't want to have anything which is not connected to Krishna. And then what Prabhupada spoke on Janasangha, he said one should also avoid associating with Mayavadis and who simply blaspheme devotees. Then there are Bhukti Kamis who are interested in material happiness, Mukti Kamis who are interested in liberation, and Siddhi Kamis who are interested in mystic perfections. So, and then Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj, he says Janasangha means, this is nice, he says, means to be very approachable to the ordinary public for politics, uh, society, and feeding the poor. So this is what is Jarasangha. You should very approachable for this. And whoever want to speak on these topics, we are readily available. We have eagerness to associate with such people. This is all Janasangha. And so many ideologies are there all around, and to chase them or to be captivated by them is Janasangha. So we are refusing to be captivated by the ideologies of our acharyas, and we are ready to be captivated by the ideology of other people. So this is the problem. When we start hearing from all these people, then we will get captivated by them, and then we may even minimize our own acharyas. They say they are not taking these things very seriously. We may criticize. So eagerness should be there to associate with more advanced devotee. Instead of that, if we allow ourselves to mix with the ordinary public in the name of preaching or collecting or any other thing, that will be detrimental to our cause. And the last point is we are on the way to prema, but the journey is very long. We have to run a long distance. So for that, what we need? We need some water to drink and good shoes. And what is that? Association of affectionate, like-minded devotees, and that does this will do a good job of water and good shoes and help us to forget the weariness of the journey. So in this way, we'll be able to come instead of taking bad association. We can always remain in good association. Hare.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much. Nice recap of what we have seen. Both Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's commentary and Srila Prabhupada's explanation of this in the from the Nectar of Instruction. And now we are currently discussing Srila Bhakti Rakshak Swami Maharaj's commentary on Nectar of Instruction only, on the topic of Jana Sangha. So I'll do a okay, but before we continue with today's discussion, so today we'll complete Srila Bhakti Rakshak Swami Maharaj's commentary, and then we will start the sixth essay, which is Laulyam. But before we start today's discussion, if there are any quick discussion points, questions, comments, anything anyone would like to share, ask, add before we continue our discussion, I will pause for a few seconds and then we can continue. Anything anyone would like to share, ask, or add based on what we saw last week and recapped today by Radha Pramukh. Okay. If there is none, okay. Muktakesh,
Hare Krishna, Dhanavad Prabhuji. Prabhuji, we see that in Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Swami Maharaj's commentary about Janasanghi, it was told that not to be very, means basically not to be very close with kind of social workers. So, uh, so means we see that they are very potential to become devotees, but when what you call, but we see that many times our previous acharyas where we see that they were very against social workers, but means but we see that many times they are likely to become devotees, but in course of preaching them we see also that matlab, devotees also getting affected. So how to, like, I just wanted to know why acharyas are so heavy, and also how to balance both, not to get affected and still preach such people.
Yeah, actually, the first point that they are very much ready to become devotees is probably a misconception. It's probably not correct. Uh, this is probably coming from the understanding that whoever is more pious, he is more likely to take up to Krishna consciousness, which is generally not correct, because piety has nothing to do with uh, taking up to Krishna consciousness. So, but the problem is, when we ourselves have this misconception, we think that they are so close, but uh, they may, according to but in terms of Ajnata Sukriti, they may not actually be that close. They may just show some material piety and some inclination to follow some Vedic teachings, but that does not mean that they have sufficient Ajnata Sukriti also, and they are very close to taking up the devotional service. That may not necessarily be right. And on top of that, if they are very strongly ideologically connected to some other non-pure devotional ideology, and if they are very powerful and charismatic, then there is a chance that we ourselves may get influenced by that ideology. So we may initially think that, oh, how nice if he would become a devotee, but then eventually we may get attracted to what they are speaking. So, so therefore, first thing we should understand that material piety does not necessarily indicate how close a person is to take up to practicing devotional service. That first thing we have to get rid of that misconception. So, yeah, sometimes, most of the times, actually, a clean slate is better than something which is already written. So, such people are actually, they have some strong ideological affinity, which is not pure devotional. So, to wipe that out and write a pure devotional understanding, it may take actually longer than to convince a materialist to take up to devotional service. Actually. So, so therefore, it's not that we have nothing against social workers. We have nothing very much positive inclination towards those who are not performing social work, but just that we have to protect ourselves from alternative ideologies. That is something that we have to be very careful.
Okay, bro.
So, anything else? There is something in the chat box. We'll take. That is one point. First question regarding not eating outside. As devotees, we generally eat in Govindas, but we know that the cooks in Govindas are not always devotees. Also, the food prepared is for commercial purposes for selling. In that case, we should avoid Should we avoid Govindas? Best thing is if we avoid. But if we have anyway decided to actually eat outside somewhere, then Govindas is probably better than other places. But it is true that in most of the Govindas, the cooks are probably not devotees. So, but at the same time, we have to see that sometimes, we have to oblige to certain family things, because as children, children might want to go out and eat, they might like to go out and eat. So they must, and just going out with the family for a meal in itself can be a pleasurable outing. So in that case, in rare circumstances, we can always, one may go to Govindas, but we have to understand that as you rightly said, not every cook in Govindas may be a devotee. And definitely it is prepared for commercial purpose, for the purpose of selling. So therefore it can definitely affect the consciousness. But if one is very much habituated to eating outside food, then to eat in Govindas is relatively better. So that can be a very good positive step in the right direction. But if one is satisfied cooking for Krishna at home and honoring the remnants offered to Krishna, then better continue doing that rather than considering Govindas. It may not be the best option. That's my understanding. And of course, this is ideally if someone is considering opening Govindas, then I would suggest, if possible, have good. I don't know how practical it is. Have devotees, good standing devotees, to cook and offer to Jagannath Baldev Subhadra Gaurnitai there in good consciousness, and then, because that way that would be great service. That's my understanding. Second question. Also, I've heard that we can eat anywhere in Dham, but everyone's consciousness in Dham is not of a devotee. Still, can we eat from anywhere in Dham? Well, definitely gradation exists. I think I will not stretch this topic anywhere further. Gradation exists even within Dham. There may be devotees who are cooking in a very good consciousness to serve the Lord. So definitely to eat there is most beneficial. Uh, and just like in Ekadashi, if you can do Nirjal and still engage in your services and remember Krishna and chant extra rounds, whatever. So that is perfect. If you cannot do that, then you can take some water. If you can still not do that, take some juice. If you do that, take some raw fruits, vegetables. If you still cannot do that, take non-grain prasadam. There is gradations there. Similarly, I would say, in Dham, if you can get prasadam cooked in the temple, best. Then if not, like that, I think there is gradation. I have seen some ISKCON temples, including ISKCON Vrindavan, selling chocolate products, but we know it is not favorable for Krishna consciousness. Won't it encourage devotees who already have this condition of eating chocolates? Well, we can see it either way. I don't know what rationale the one who is selling there. Probably the one who is selling, probably he has the rationale, giving that person the benefit of doubt that anyway people are eating chocolates outside. They are addicted to eating chocolates, and in ISKCON there is no chocolate, so they have to necessarily eat chocolate outside. So better we ourselves make chocolates so that devotees can at least not avoid eating outside. I am just giving the benefit of doubt for the devotees who are making chocolates. Anyway, that is something little bit debatable also. Sometimes people say that Prabhupada actually did not really forbid eating chocolates as such, as long as we can cook them. That's something, and I have heard sometimes devotees quote Her Grace Yamuna Mataji also. So I'm not very sure about it. So yeah, this is still a gray area. I don't want to really take very extreme stance on this. So yeah, and another thing is maybe that's carob powder and not cocoa. So that's also possible. It looks like carom very much looks like chocolate, so probably that's the case. Anything else before we move ahead? Okay, let's continue then. So we were discussing from Srila Bhakti Shakti Swami Maharaj's commentary to this Jana Sangha. He says, I will again start because this is a very nice way in which he explains. He says, Janasangha means to be very approachable to the ordinary public for politics, sociality, feeding the poor, etc. So people should not think that we are into, we are ready for everything, politics, sociality, feeding poor, all these things. Not that we don't feed the poor, we do feed the poor, but that's not the only thing that we do. And it's not that we don't encourage social gatherings. We do have social gatherings, but but uh, but it's not that we join any social gathering for that matter, right? So many conceptions and ideals are there all around, and to chase them or to be captivated by them is Janasangha. Because in today's day and age, especially in today's day and age, this is so relevant because as human beings, as Kali Yuga is progressing, as predicted by Srimad Bhagavatam, Prayena Alpayusha Sabya Kalavasmi Yuge Jana Manda Sumanda Matayo Manda Bhakya Hi Upatrita. Are losing our intelligence, discrimination, patience. So we do not have patience to, read carefully from cover to cover any book. We are in this age where we want 1 minute videos, half a minute videos, 2 minute videos, like that. That is our level of patience. You all are special souls who have the time to attend 2-hour sessions, which is especially on subject matters which are deeply philosophical, which is very, very, very rare. You are microscopically, you are microscopic minority. So therefore, uh, uh, therefore there are. So we don't like to read. So we like that which is very, um, palatably and pleasingly presented in the social media and other such forums. Different ideologies, conceptions, and we tend to chase them around and captivated by them. We tend to be captivated by them, right? So this is Janasangha, eager to be captivated by ideologies which are not pure devotional. Like so many things. Sadhu-sanga means that association which promotes us towards a higher cause, and that which takes us away from that cause is Janasangha. A higher cause is surrender to Guru, Vaishnavas, Hari Guru Vaishnava. That is the higher cause. And anything that takes us away from that, if someone says surrender to demigods, surrender to various planetary systems, the planets are affecting your life, so surrender to the planets. Prabhupada said, Krishna with one kick can disperse thousands of planets. Madbayad vati vatoyam suryas tapati madbayad varshattindro dahatyagir mrityus charati madbayad. This is what the Lord says. Because of fear of me, all the devatas are functioning because of the fear of Krishna. So if one surrenders to Krishna, one should very clearly understand that uh, uh, the devatas don't trouble them. The devatas don't trouble them. And Krishna says, Shri Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur commenting on that verse, he says, uh, there is a conversation that it is a conversation in Bhagavatam where Kapila Dev is suggesting that one practice pure devotional service. Someone says, oh, by worshipping Krishna, if we neglect the demigods, won't the demigods be upset with that practitioner and try to give him troubles? So when Kapila Dev hears this, with great anger, he says, Madbayat vati vatoyam matsuryastapati madbayat, like that. In fear of me, all the demigods are providing all amenities to the qualified living entities. So he says that because of surrendering to me, if by surrendering to me and because of watering the root, you do not, individually, you may pacify the demigods, and because of that, if the demigods trouble you, Krishna says, I will not think twice before removing them from their post. So these are things. Okay, this is our understanding. This is what the acharyas are mentioning. But still, different people may say, we have to pacify the grahas, we have to pacify the devatas, and we have to pacify them, we have to pacify. Well, if we are too eager to be, yes, this philosophy also I will accept, that philosophy also I will accept. If you are very eager to be captivated by those philosophies, then that is Janasanga. And here he says, whichever takes us away from our surrender to Krishna, Vaishnavas, Hari Guru Vaishnavas, that is actually a satsanga. And it can be something Vedic, it can be something non-Vedic. One thing we should understand, anything that is Vedic is not necessarily conducive to pure devotional service. In fact, something which is Vedic but non-pure devotional can very well disguise itself as being very devotional and trick us. So therefore, these things are all the more dangerous because they seem very close to pure devotional ideology, pure devotional philosophy. And you can quote some Sanskrit verses also to substantiate. And our tendency is, wherever some Sanskrit verse is there, we think that, oh, that must be bona fide. That might be bona fide, but it may not be necessarily relevant for us. Like, for example, even Charvak Muni wrote his philosophy in pure unalloyed Sanskrit only. Right? Pure unalloyed Sanskrit. Rinam kritva ghritam pivet yavat jivet sukam jivet. But basically, it's an atheistic philosophy. Atheistic philosophy written in pure, unalloyed, perfect grammatical Sanskrit. But our nature is that if we see a verse written in Sanskrit, we think that it must be very bona fide. This is not necessarily true. And even if it is bona fide, it may be bona fide, it may not necessarily be applicable to us. So we can have, so one should not think that Janasanga or unholy association can come only from outside the Vedic fold. It can come from within the Vedic fold also. Not because that is unholy, but because we have an unholy understanding about it. Something which in itself does not claim that it is pure devotional, but we think that it is pure devotional. There are many such philosophies. So these can actually stunt our growth because it is providing alternative shelters. That is why Srila Rupa Goswami says, Bhakti, pure devotional service has to be Jnana Karmadi Anavritam. It should not be covered by Jnana Karma, etc. Like that. So therefore, he says it must not be maladjusted. Each person should be properly adjusted. We must have eagerness to mix with the sadhus of a higher type. Instead, if we allow ourselves to mix with the ordinary public in the name of preaching or collection or any other thing, that will be detrimental to our cause. You know, so we may have this political party, that political party, oh, that political party is maybe pro-Hindu party or whatever. So we will mix with them anyway. It is good for us, like that. And in doing that, we may also get ideologically carried away by them. So these are things which we have to be very careful. So he says, we are finite beings that are lost here. We are finite beings that are lost here in this material world. We have a long journey ahead, with much trouble. Adau Shraddha Tata sadhu-sanga Vajana Kriya Anartha Nivritti Nishta Ruchi Asakti Bhava Prema. But the disappointment and dejection is minimized if we have good association on that long journey. By talking with them about the Lord, we can go on. So we forget the weariness of the journey. If we have good association, even a difficult journey can be tolerated easily. So that is the point. Otherwise, if we don't have good association, then see, lack of good association is good association and lack of loving exchanges and being satisfied in those exchanges is one of the main reasons why one can get ideologically attracted to opposing philosophies. Because if we have good friends following very perfect practice of bhakti, then in their association, even during our difficult times or unenthusiastic times, they will pull us along and we can very happily progress further. But if we are struggling with good relationships with devotees, then during our troubled times, when we don't feel that shelter in the association of devotees, then we go everywhere. We may go to some modern self-help guru, or we may go to astrology, we may go to so many other things, it is possible. So we have a long journey ahead and there is much trouble. It's not going to be a bed of roses. But the disappointment and dejection can be minimized if you have good association in that long journey. So then by talking with them about the Lord, then we can go on. Bhaktim muhu pravahatam tvaime prasango bhuyadananta mahatam amalashayanam yenanja solbanamuru vyasanam bhavabdim neshye bhavat gunakatam ratapanam. So this is the point that neshye bhavat gunakatam ratapanam. So here, even after attaining the direct darshan of Krishna, Prahlad Maharaj is telling that I desire the association of devotees because in their association I can discuss Krishna Katha, and in that association, while discussing Krishna Katha, I can easily overcome the trouble of material existence. So we forget the weariness of the journey. So therefore, Chaitanya Charitamrita says, Krishna Bhakti Janma Mula Hai sadhu-sanga Krishna prema janmete ho punar mukhya anga. Krishna Bhakti Janma Mula Hai sadhu-sanga. The root cause of devotion to Krishna is association with advanced devotees. We get association, we get devotion because of association with devotees. And Krishna prema janme teho munar mukhyanga. Even when one's dormant love for Krishna awakens, the association with devotees is still most essential. So the point is that it's not that when we progress more and more, we will become less and less dependent on the association of devotees. In fact, the symptom of progress is how much we are feeling dependence on devotees. And if you are feeling less and less dependent on devotees and more dependent on other things, karma, jnana, yoga, whatever, prayaschitta, karma kandya, prayaschitta, astrology, and all these things, it indicates that we are not progressing. We might be regressing actually in our faith. So a real symptom of progress is to the extent we feel our spiritual life is dependent on association. So this is very contrary to outside understanding actually. This is absolutely contrary to outside understanding. This defies common sense. We may think, like for example, when someone is learning to cycle, when children learn to cycle, in their cycle there is additional two wheels. What do they call it? Supporting wheels or side wheels? I don't know. Whatever. So you can't fall down. It is like they are like supporting the hind wheels. So the person cannot fall down. And the more he becomes an expert, the less and less he will depend on those two additional wheels. So symptom of progress in cycling is how much he becomes independent of those supporting wheels. And similarly, this is the symptom of progress everywhere in the outside world also, to the extent that you become independent of the support system. To that extent, that is a symptom of your progress. But in spiritual world, it is in the spiritual life, in the spiritual journey, this is exactly opposite. The more we progress, the more we feel we are dependent on the association of devotees. But if we are becoming more and more dependent on non-devotional support systems, we are regressing. Our faith is regressing. Nothing to feel alarmed, but we have to address it. So that's what he says here. So then he continues that the very origin of devotion to Krishna comes from the association of the sadhu. Krishna prema janme tehom punar mukhya anga. And when we acquire a drop of divine love within our heart, then also our hope, solace, consolation, health, everything comes from the association of the devotees. Krishna prema janme teho punar mukhya anga. The devotees are all in all from the beginning up to the end. Our favorable companions can help us in our journey towards the infinite. Right? They are something solid, something concrete, similar in nature to us. Sajatiya ashe snigde sadhu-sanga swatovare. This might seem like a sign of weakness in the outside world. Like Narottam Das Thakur sings, Pashane kotibo mata, anale pashibo, Nidhi kota gele pabo. So I am willing to hit my head against a stone and I'm willing to enter fire. I am feeling so much separation from all my associates. I'm going to just give up my life. So this might seem like a symptom of symptom of weakness. But in reality, this is really the greatest spiritual qualification. The more we feel dependent on the association of devotees, the more it is actually a symptom of progress. Only with the interchange of our thought, good, bad, hope, despair, everything they can appreciate, and in a group we can go on. So we have a common understanding of what is good, what is bad, anukulyasya sankalpo, pratikulyasya varjanam. We have a common definition of success. We have a common definition of failure. We enjoy the same things. We appreciate the same things. We have love for each other. We have appreciation for each other. We want to encourage each other. We want to hold hands together and march towards Krishna's lotus feet. Otherwise, if we are alone, we think, oh, what am I doing? I am wild goose chasing. I am chasing a wild goose. It's not going to be possible. It's a futile endeavor, we may think. So a reaction may come and we may leave our bhajan and go away. Our Guru Maharaj gave much stress on the association of the devotees. Dushta mana tumi kisera Vaishnava. Pratishtara tare nirjanera ghare tava hari name kevala kaitava. He says, oh mind, what kind of Vaishnava are you? To gain false prestige, you sit in a solitary place, but your chanting of the holy name is only cheating. Do you want to take the holy name of Krishna in a solitary place? This is a hoax of Maya. She will come and take you by the ear. Kaan pakad ke leke jayegi. You won't be able to fight for a long time if you are alone. Always try to be with others. That's why Bhagavatam says, Satsangad mukta dussango hatum notsahate buddha kirtyamanam yashoyasya sakrid akarnya rochanam. So, Sutta Goswami says, Satsangad mukta dussango. The ability to give up bad association comes only from the empowering association of devotees. Mukta dussango. Satsangat mukta dussango. So, but if we don't have the empowering association of devotees, then we don't feel the power. So, but one thing we should understand is that the more one progresses, the more one feels the dependence on devotees. So for us, even to control our senses, controlling our senses from indulging in gross sinful activities, even for that we may need association. But advanced devotees, they can actually be alone and be Krishna conscious. But they feel that they are hopelessly dependent on the association of devotees. This is the irony. The irony is that they are actually independent. They are not so much dependent on the association of devotees. They can actually, their senses are very well controlled. They can actually remember Krishna very easily, even if they are alone. But they think that they are helplessly and hopelessly dependent on the association of devotees. For us, even 1 minute when we are away from the association, our mind, or even in association, our mind runs here and there, but we think that I am not so much dependent on the association of devotees. This is the irony, actually. So Maharaj says, we won't be able to fight for a long time if you are alone. Always try to be with others. When you are with so many other devotees, you will get strength from one another, and a long march will be a very pleasant thing for you. A sincere devotee will always hanker after good association with those who will be able to help him, giving encouragement at every stage. So what kind of encouragement? No, it is very near. Let us go a little more, and then we shall get some clue. Thoda, thoda, thoda खींच लो, हो गया, आ गया, like that. Have that kind of association. Such an association does not lead to perfection. Such an association is perfection in itself. Such an association is perfection in itself. There is no higher perfection than that. So in this way, there will be mutual help. I was once told that Napoleon reached somewhere with his soldiers in a harsh land, and they were standing there for a long time. They were very tired and they wanted to take a seat. They could not go on standing any longer. Then Napoleon put them in a circle and asked them to their seat. Everyone was giving a seat to another by sitting on another's lap. In this way, in a circle, everyone got a seat. So I don't know exactly how it happened, but it looks like, the arrangement was such that everyone was giving their own lap as a seat for other, and they themselves are sitting on someone else's lap, and in this way everyone got a seat, it looks like. So, and in this way, that was the Napoleonic chair. Sadhu-sanga is like that. When my mind is a little depressed, sadhu will come to encourage me. In this way, the journey forward is very comfortable. So, this is Srila Bhakti Rakshak Swami Maharaj's commentary on Janasanga. So, rather than avoiding unfavorable association, he does touch on this topic, but he won't invest in positive Krishna conscious association. It is impossible to avoid Janasanga. So, Maharaj very beautifully focuses on the solution. The solution is invest in proper Krishna conscious relationships. Invest in proper Krishna conscious relationships. And when you get nourishment from Krishna conscious relationships, then we can save ourselves from Janasanga. But if we are not having meaningful relationships with devotees, if we are not having meaningful exchanges with devotees, then to avoid asatsanga is impossible. It's not difficult, it is impossible. So some nourishment should come from somewhere. Right. So I will just add a few more points and then we will pause for some discussion and question answers on this theme. So Srila Raghunath Das Goswami also on this theme of Satsanga Mukta Dussango, how to avoid unfavorable association and to avoid being influenced by the anarthas. It is possible only by association of devotees. So in order to address this point, in his Manas Siksha, Srila Raghunath Das Goswami discusses this various anarthas. Uh, he talks about the anarthas of lust, anger, envy, greed, He says, Asat cheshta kashta prada vikata pashali viriha prakamam kamadi prakata patapati vyatikarehi gale badva hanyeham iti vakabit vartmapagane kurutvam futkaran avadisayatatvam manayita. He says that iha, while here on the prakata patapati, while here on this path to Krishna's lotus feet, which has been revealed by the acharyas, by their words, by their conduct, by their pastimes, they have revealed us the path going to the lotus feet of Krishna. But while on this path, the path is clean, the path is sparkless, sparkingly clean. But Vyatikaraihi, but there is a gang of thieves which are waiting to attack me and rob me of my treasure, of my wealth. And who are they? Who are these highway robbers? Prakamam kamadi, my lust, anger, envy, greed, illusion, pride. These 6 robbers are waiting to rob me. So, and how they are going to rob me? Gale badwa, they are going to bind my neck. They are going to choke my neck. How? Kashta prada vikata pashalive. They are going to bind my neck by some troublesome ropes. And what are these ropes? Asat cheshta. Activities, cunning, unholy activities which are inspired by these 6 enemies. Lust and right. So lusty activities, angry activities, greedy activities, illusory activities. So engaging in them. So these activities are like ropes which are going to choke the neck, throat of the person. So what is the solution? He says, Hanyeham, Hanyeham, iti kurutvam futkaran. Cry out for help. I am dead, someone is killing me, please save me. Like that, please start shouting. To whom? Bakabit Vartmapagane. Bakabit Vartmapagane means Baka is Bakasur, Bakabit is the pillar of Bakasur Krishna. Bakabit Vartma means the path that leads to Krishna. Vartmapa means the protectors of that path. These are the policemen who are protecting the path leading to Krishna's lotus feet. They are the devotees. Bakabid Vartmapagane Kurutvam Futkaran. Cry out for help to the devotees. Avati Sayatatvam Manahita. And they will come and save you from this. So which means the solution for lust, anger, envy, greed, illusion and pride is we should cry out for help from the devotees. So what does it mean to cry out for help? To cry out for help means first thing is we should seek help. Second is to seek help, we should have a comfortable relationship. Relationship. So we can seek help provided we feel very comfortable opening up our heart to them. And we will be able to open up our heart to them only if we have invested in that relationship. So many times we think, if lust attacks, what do I do? It is easy to say, oh, seek association. I mean, when lust attacks, we cannot seek association. Under normal circumstances, if you have properly invested in a relationship with devotees, then when the attack comes, we know where to take shelter and we feel comfortable taking shelter from there. Otherwise, there are 100 people, but we don't feel comfortable with anyone. So we are left all alone to suffer. There is no other solution for this. So therefore, what it means to cry out for help means to invest in that relationship so that you feel comfortable crying from that person, comfortable to seek help from that person. And the more obvious thing is never be alone. So because we cannot trust our mind and senses. If we are alone, we can always be attacked. As long as we have not crossed the stage of anartha nivritti, anytime the attack can come from any side. Especially in today's day and age, this is a world of distraction, and as it is mentioned, there are weapons of mass distraction us from any side. So this is the obvious meaning, that never be alone and always surround oneself with the association of devotees, so that one can stay protected. So this is one verse in which he talks about the association of devotees being the most easiest way of overcoming these anarthas. And then there are subtler anarthas, which is desire for fame, desire for recognition, desire for distinction, desire for honor, which is called as pratishta asha. So, Srila Raghunath Goswami says, Pratistasha drishta shvapacharamani me pradinate katam sadhu prema sprushati shuchir etad nanumana sadatvam sevasva prabudayita samantamutulam yata tam nishkasya tvaritam ihatam veshayati saha. He says. So he says, drishta, as long as the unchaste shvapacharamani, as long as the unchaste dog-eating woman, who is compared to this dog-eating woman? He says, pratishta asha, desire for prestige, desire to be honored, recognize my contribution, give me the glorification that I deserve. That's all, not more than that. So that desire for honor, prestige, distinction. So it is compared to a dog eating, untouchable, who is dancing in my heart. As long as she dances in my heart. Katam shuchihi sadhu prema sprishati etad. How can the pure love of God touch my heart? It is not possible. So as long as this desire to be recognized is there, then we cannot recognize Krishna. It is very difficult. What is the solution? Raghunath Goswami says, Sadatvam sevasva prabudayita samanta matulam. Learn to serve exalted devotees. Learn to serve more advanced devotees. When you serve more advanced devotees, then yatat tam nishkasya tvaritam ihatam veshayati saha. He says that so when we serve exalted devotees, then very, very soon we see that, oh, this person actually deserves all the honor, all the prestige, all the facilities, all the glorification, all the distinction. We feel, and then we think that, and by serving that person, our heart becomes softer and softer and softer, and then eventually that desire goes away. And when that desire goes away, then love of Godhead imperceptibly enters our heart. So therefore, here again, the solution for most of the anarthas, that either gross or subtle, is actually association of devotees. This is what Bhagavatam in very simple language says, Satsangat Mukta Dussango. If you want to bad association, either bad association or internally. Externally in the form of whatever different people, websites, whatever, and internally in the form of anarthas, either gross or subtle. The ability to overcome all of that is possible only through good association. So therefore, here Srila Bhakti Rakshak Siddha Swami Maharaj, he begins by telling that bad association is bad, yes, but now that we are trapped in this bad association, we are addicted to bad association. How do we get away from bad association? He says the solution is invest in good association. Satsangat mukta dussango. When we don't feel nourished and satisfied and happy in the association of devotees, then that vacuum will pull us towards unholy association. Right? So therefore, okay, I will, I will just touch this one more topic and then we will pause for some discussion. Please do write down the comments, questions, anything that you have. I know I have not opened up the floor for some questions or discussion for a long time, but I will do it because I just want to ensure that this topic gets over today. So, but please do write down your questions, thoughts, comments, etc., and then share it once we pause for some discussion points. So, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that there are 4 types of anarthas. So, one he says is asat trishna. Asat trishna means thirst for material objects, thirst for material gratification. Okay. And the second type he says is hridaya daurbalyam, weakness of heart. And the third type that he says is tattva vibrama. Tattva vibrama means improper bewilderment with respect to the philosophical understanding. Okay. Philosophical bewilderment. And the fourth type is aparad or offenses. Okay. So he says that asat trishna, hridaya daurbalyam, tattva vibrama, and aparad, offenses. Okay. So he talks about 4 kinds of asat trishna. Okay. Asat trishna is of 4 types. So desire for material objects, desire for heavenly comforts, desire for mystic powers, and desire for liberation. These are all non-devotional. Thirst for these non-devotional things is called as asat trishna. And there are 4 kinds of hridaya daurbalyam, weakness of heart. He says envy, desire for fame, deceitfulness or fault finding, and attachment to objects unrelated to Krishna. So these things indicate that our heart is weak and malnourished. It is not sufficiently nourished. So when the malnourished heart shows symptoms of malnourishment, of fame, deceitfulness, or deceitfulness, when we see fault in ourselves, we want to hide it and deceitfully deal with it. We want to hide it from others. And when we see fault in others, we are very eager to broadcast it, talk about it, criticize it, like that. So this is again a symptom of a malnourished heart. And for this attachment to objects unrelated to Krishna. So these are the 4 symptoms of malnourishment. And then the next is actually tattva vibrama. Tattva vibrama means misunderstanding, philosophical misunderstanding. There are 4 kinds of philosophical misunderstanding. Swatattva vibrama, paratattva vibrama, Bhakti tattva vibrama, and Bhakti Pratikula Vastu Tattva Vibram. Misunderstanding about one's own identity, misunderstanding about the identity of the Supreme Lord, and the third is misunderstanding about the process of devotional service, and fourth is misunderstanding about what is favorable and what is unfavorable for devotional service. These are the four types. And then there are four kinds of aparadhas. Offenses to the holy name, offenses to the Lord's deity form, offenses to devotees, and offenses to other living entities. Right. So now, anyway, so these are the four kinds of aparadhas in which there are four different types. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur gives simple solutions to these problems. In his Bhajana Rahasya commentary of Shikshashtakam. So he says, what is the solution for Asat Trishna? How do I overcome thirst for enjoying material gratification? So he says, very simple, try to perfectly follow the second verse of Manasiksha. The second verse of Manasiksha. Atyahara prayasascha prajalpo niyamagraha janasangascha laulyamcha shadved bhaktir vinashyati. If we consciously practice the second verse, then the thirst for material gratification will go away. Then he says, how do we overcome weakness of heart? Hridaya daurbalya. So he says, when we see symptoms of a weak heart, malnourished heart, in the form of envy, deceitfulness, fault finding, desire for fame, then he says, we should understand that our heart is not sufficiently nourished with Vaishnava Priti, with affection for Vaishnavas. So what is the solution? He says, follow the fourth verse of Nectar of Instruction. Dada prati yamakyati prichati bhumte bhojete cheva shadvidam priti lakshanam. One should learn to have these 6 exchanges with the devotees, and when we have these 6 exchanges, it will lead to priti, affectionate bonding, and that affectionate bonding will what nourish our hearts, and when our heart is nourished with those affectionate bonding, then actually the symptoms of malnourishment goes away. So when when our heart is not nourished in the association of devotees, then all kinds of symptoms of malnourishment in the form of fame, desire for fame, envy, these are all intoxicating emotions. When our heart is not nourished, then we take shelter of intoxication, of envy, fault finding, deceitfulness, desire for fame, hankering after fame, like that. So therefore, here also he says that it is only the association of devotees by which we can overcome Janasanga. Janasanga means unholy association. Holy association, being satisfied in holy association is the only means of overcoming unholy association. Okay, so these are few thoughts and few things from the writings of the Acharyas I just wanted to share on this topic. Any quick comments, discussion points, questions, anything anyone would like to share at this point of time before we move on to the 6th essay, which is about Laulyam. So I'll pause for a few seconds to see if anyone would like to share, ask, add. In the meantime, while others are getting ready to maybe phrase their question and raise their hands. In the meantime, there is a question in the chat box. Sometimes groups of devotees get affected by wrong ideology. They may feel they are in association with doing basic sadhana. How to protect such devotees? Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's in one sense, it is by slowly helping them redevelop attachment to the acharyas. This is one of the ways we have to gradually help them uh, regain faith in acharyas and inspire them to study their writings and see for themselves that how the kind of ideology that they are getting attached to and getting affected by is actually taking them away from Krishna's lotus feet, and it is not complete. So therefore, we should always have a forum of where people challenge our understanding. We should allow people to challenge our understanding. So that way, we will become attached to the right understanding rather than my understanding. See, attachment is always there. So better be attached to the right understanding rather than my understanding. So for that, we should always encourage people who will challenge our understanding. So that otherwise, if we are always speaking to our subordinates who will always nod their head and accept whatever we say, then we are in deep trouble. Not only are we in deep trouble, we are going to put our subordinates also in deep trouble. So this is a big problem. So it's always healthy to encourage people to challenge our understanding, not in an unhealthy way, but in a healthy way. These kind of forums, it is not that I am the only person who speaks. So you can speak, you can share your thoughts, you can ask your questions, and you are allowed to disagree with my presentation, right? So you may say that Prabhuji, what you are speaking is contrary to my experience. The principle that you are mentioning is contrary to my experience. I should be able to give a reasonable explanation to why it is contrary. Right? Or sometimes you may say that, Prabhuji, you are telling this, but Prabhupada in his purport is quoting like this. How would you explain the contradiction? I should be able to give a reasonable explanation to the apparent contradiction. Right? Or sometimes you may say, Prabhuji, you are telling like this, but our past acharyas are explaining it in a different way. Here, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur in his writing, he says like this, but you are telling like this. Why this contradiction? I should have a reasonable explanation for that. Or someone may say that, in other books, you may be quoting from Bhagavatam and the Acharya's writings, but Mahabharata and other such literatures, they say something else. How would you reconcile? I should be able to explain it. So in this way, if you encourage, whenever there is an opportunity to share our thoughts, if we make it a habit to share our thoughts in an association where people can, in a healthy mood, challenge our convictions, then it is absolutely healthy for us. So I am not directly answering your question about how we can help other people who are affected by wrong ideology. Rather, I am telling how we can protect ourselves from such wrong ideology by uh, by this let people challenge. And if you are found wrong, fall at the feet and accept it. Thank that person. We wish to be attached to the right understanding and not our understanding. Let us change. It's okay. It is better to attain the lotus feet of Krishna by accepting that my understanding was wrong than to adamantly be attached to our wrong understanding. So that is perfectly fine. So therefore, but when we see others who are affected by this unfavorable ideology, then we need to slowly show by our example that where our attachment is, where our how we should be attached to the writings of the acharyas. You can quote from the writings of the acharyas, help that person develop attachment to our Guru Sishya Parampara, our Guru Varga, and in that way, because basically wrong ideologies means other gurus have entered. That is plain simple truth is that we have allowed other gurus to enter. So slowly we have to help them reconnect to our gurus. Then that is the only way to help such people from wrong ideologies. That's all. Is that relevant, Muktakesh Bro?
Yes, yes, Praveen. Also, I had one more question
Yeah.
regarding this Madhbhaya, Suryastapati Madhbhaya in this connection.
Mhm.
Like commentary that Krishna will take care.
Mhm.
So, is like in general tendency that we expect that then the life will be smooth, but we see that I have heard from many senior devotees and proper disciple also that uh, they were telling that when there was some negate, like some time is there according to astrology, that some time the particular graha is attacking on you, huh? Like some time there will be reversal in even in our spiritual life.
Mhm.
So then they were telling that they were actually going through trouble in their life. So
Mhm.
can we say, so what does that mean? That does that mean that Krishna wants us to go through that suffering, and in that case some other people, the person with less faith, it may seem that, see, even devotees are getting affected by the what you call some shani or some sadisati or some kind of some like that. You are
Yeah.
able to understand my
Yeah.
question?
I'm able to. I think I'm able to understand what your question is.
Because when
So
we see that, yeah, yes, Praveen.
yeah. So when we see devotees suffering, see ultimately karma is invisible force, and Krishna is also invisible. So when devotee is getting suffering, suffering in itself does not necessarily mean it is coming from karma. There is a very powerful purport to uh, you know uh, yasyaham anugranami harishet dhanam shanai. For that verse, there is a very powerful purport by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Why do devotees suffer? And whether their suffering is due to karma, or it is due to graha, or it is due to Krishna. Very powerful purport, and it answers all these questions. Why Krishna puts his devotees into suffering? Okay, for what purpose? So it is not due to karma. So first thing, right from the day one takes up to devotional service, right from that time, it is not due to karma. So therefore, the grahas are controlled by Krishna. So if Krishna, so we don't have to adjust the instruments. We have to adjust, we have to tell the doctor who is using those instruments. Okay. Because the doctor is doing something because he knows this is what the patient needs. Okay. First thing, we have to be completely convinced of this. Otherwise, if we are trying to adjust the grahas, then we are tacitly understanding that my life is, Krishna has not taken over my life. My life is still being controlled by these grahas and all these things only. So under such circumstances, then Krishna will think, if that's what you want, I am putting you in a situation so that you will respond in a particular way that will bring you closer to my lotus feet. With that in mind, I put you under problem. But the only thing that you had to do, that you could do, was again and again go to an astrologer and try to change your karma. So Krishna thinks that maybe this person actually wants karma to orchestrate his life only. He is happy that way. So Krishna allows that person, "Theek hai, jao. May your life be controlled by karma only." So we have to understand the psychology of Krishna. Devotees. So sometimes, Vishnu Jagadakur says, sometimes just like a father, sometimes he may give sweets to his son, and sometimes sweet kaka ke when he gets some insect, or what do you call them, germs in his stomach, then as an act of deworming, he may give some neem juice, to the bitter neem juice to his son, to do the deworming. So even though the son may not like the bitter neem juice, but he understands that my father is doing it for my own benefit. He does not actually doubt the integrity of his father, the intent of his father. So sometimes Krishna's mercy may come in the form of happiness, sometimes it may come in the form of distress. So we can pray that Krishna, give me the intelligence to act in such a way that I respond to this distressful situation in the right way and come closer to your lotus feet. Rather than think that, oh, my suffering is due to my karma only, so, and I don't want suffering, so let me go to and adjust my this graha, that graha, and actually adjust my karma so that I can be peaceful. So this is, we have a choice. So ultimately, hands of Krishna are invisible. The system of karma is also invisible. What is visible? Suffering. So how can one be sure that the suffering is due to karma or due to Krishna? So we are dependent, anything, when something is invisible, we are dependent on Shabda Praman because it is beyond our Pratyaksha. Suffering in itself does not mean karma. Krishna in itself does not mean happiness and fun. Krishna does not promise it. Nirdanatva maharogo madanugraha lakshanam. Krishna says in Bhagavatam, Nirdanatva maharogo, the great affliction known as poverty, is actually a symptom of my mercy, he says. Sometimes Krishna does that. Nirdanatva maharogo mad anugraha lakshanam. So when Krishna wants to, same thing he says here, Yasyaham anugranami harishyeta dhanam shanaihi Tato adanam dadantasya swajana dukkha dukkitam. So Krishna orchestrates these things to his devotees to pull them closer to his lotus feet. Very beautiful commentary, practically every single question that one may get in terms of why do devotees suffer? Is devotees suffering due to Krishna or is it due to karma? Everything is beautifully answered in that commentary. So therefore, yes, there may be inauspicious times and all that, but ultimately, mantratas santatas chadram desha kalarha vastutah sarvam karoti nischidram anusankirtanam tava. That is exactly what even Shukracharya said. There may be inauspicious time, there may be inauspicious there may be inauspicious places, everything. Sarvam kanoti nischidram anusankirtanam tava. Isn't the process of bhakti, isn't Krishna capable of neutralizing inauspiciousness? That is our understanding. That is what our acharyas have taught. Is that relevant, Muktakesh? I don't know if I have answered your question or addressed your question.
Yes, Prabhuji. Yeah, because yeah, because sometimes it gets matched that someone already hears that this is the time period when this graha is attacking you, and devotee starts observing some negativity in his life in spite of devotional service. Though then one may feels that what that prediction of astrology is coming true, and in spite of my devotional service, I am not being what you call the problems are not reducing. So this may happen, but what you said is perfectly correct, that Krishna is only giving. Yeah, yes.
Yeah, of course, see, ultimately many things are there. The faith of the astrologer also has to be protected by Krishna, isn't it? Because ultimately astrology is also a Vedanga only.
Yeah.
So the faith of the astrologer also has to be protected. And the astrologer may not be a pure devotee. So if the astrologer predicts something and if it does not work, he will lose faith in his science, in his skill, in his profession, which would be very unfortunate, right? So Krishna may say, "Okay, I will allow your prediction to come true and utilize it to pull that person closer to my lotus feet." Can't Krishna do that?
Yes.
So Krishna has to simultaneously protect the faith of the astrologer also, and at the same time, he has to accomplish the task of pulling the devotee closer to Krishna's lotus feet. So Krishna can use an astrologer's prediction also as an instrument to pull that devotee closer to his lotus feet. So that way, the astrologer's faith is protected. So for Krishna, nothing is impossible. So just because the astrologer's prediction comes true does not mean we stop seeing through the eyes of our acharyas and the shastras. We are not supposed to see life situations through astrological texts. We are supposed to see life situations through the eyes of our Bhakti Shastras and the acharyas who are teaching those texts. Does it make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Purushottam Prasad Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Vijit and Pranam. Thank you so much for this beautiful presentations and deep insight of how to overcome all these anarthas. So you mentioned that in the path of the bhakti, there are two robbers who steal away our bhakti, right? And you gave the two robbers are like the anarthas and the puja labha pratishtha.
Yeah.
Generally, the thieves, they don't attack directly. They wait for the opportunity, and then when we are a little bit what you call negligent or careless, they try to attack us. So though we are very vigilant, try to do things, as you said, the present atmosphere is so much disturbance and distraction. In spite of being with devotees, in spite of being very focused in our sadhana, etc., etc., in spite of that, we undergo some time, the anger predominant, sometimes greed predominant. So where these robbers are hiding within us, Prabhuji. Of course, 340 Krishna gives, the senses, mind, intelligence of the sitting places of this lust. They give the clue. Apart from that, how do we preventive measures be very safe from these robbers?
Hey, that's what we were discussing, right?
The pure devotees association, I agree, but all the time, see, for example, I get anger, but I go and discuss with the devotee in an angry mood. That should not disturb his consciousness, isn't it?
That's what I'm telling you. See, once it comes, how to address is one thing.
Yeah.
That is very difficult always.
Yeah.
But we are talking about, first thing is, we may ask, how do I go to the battlefield and fight? So, yeah.
Right.
But before you go to the battlefield, at least 10 years of training is needed.
Yes.
Right. So, like they say, the more you sweat in peace, the less you bleed
in the field. Yeah, in the war. Yes.
Right. So, So sweating in peace means how much we invest in meaningful, trustworthy, loving relationships under normal circumstances. To that extent, our heart will become nourished and we will not fall prey to the symptoms of malnourishment in the form of fame, envy, fault finding, deceitfulness, like that. So this is a more sustainable solution than when anger comes, how do I deal with it? So yeah, I mean, when anger comes, it's difficult to deal with it actually. But how we can protect ourselves from succumbing to that anger in the first place, that needs a more sustainable endeavor. And one of the very powerful ways of doing that is to invest in meaningful, loving relationships with the devotees.
Thank you. Thank you. Very convincing. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Mother Gail.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Yeah, going back to the previous discussion about whether Krishna or karma, I perfectly understand that Krishna's intervention in our life can look like, karma or suffering or whatever. Yeah, I mean, it can take on either face, suffering, happiness. But at the same time, I feel like I'm hearing conflicting information because, for example, one thing I've heard is that will Krishna actually interfere with our free will if we are at times choosing to rely on our karma, in the form of astrology, instead of relying on him completely. Would that not be somehow an interference of our free will? If once we have decided, okay, I'm going to take up this bhakti path, right? If at that time Krishna says, okay, your whole life is now under my control, no more karma for you.
Mhm.
Is that not somehow an interference of our free will?
How?
Because at times, instead of relying on Krishna's protection to shelter me in my life, I'm choosing to at times rely on, you know, my astrological charts and
So which
you know,
means you do have your free will, right? So Krishna is
yeah,
allowing you to do that.
yeah.
So
So because my point is that, you know, let's say I'm a person who I've taken up the bhakti path, you know, I've taken that up, but you know, so according to how I've understood you, once I have made that decision, right,
Mhm.
Krishna takes full charge
yeah, he
of.
takes full charge, but still we have our free will. Yeah, he does not, without interfering with our free will. So Krishna takes full charge of orchestrating situations. So to respond to that situation is still within our free will. Whether karma orchestrates a particular situation for us, or Krishna orchestrates a particular situation for us, the free will to respond lies in the hands of the living entity only. So Krishna does not take that away. So, yeah, I mean, that's just a clarification. I just want to. You can complete your question.
Yeah, so you know, I'm glad you said that, because so therefore my question, I guess, is once I have decided that I want to pursue this Krishna conscious path, then yes, I have my free will as to whether I rely on Krishna or rely on karma. But as you said, either karma is orchestrating my situation or Krishna is orchestrating. So my understanding was that once I decided to become, you know, to pursue this bhakti path, then it is Krishna only who is orchestrating everything,
Yeah,
not my karma.
It is Krishna only who is orchestrating our, as long as our faith is only in Krishna. But if we allow our faith to be contaminated through various associations, different associations, and if we take additional shelter of them, which we see, because we show our dependence on Krishna based on our actions. So if we trust that Krishna is orchestrating our situations, then at the most we will pray to Krishna for some clarity. Krishna, how do you want me to respond in such a situation? Or we will take shelter of the association of devotees and try to overcome the distress in a Krishna conscious way. But if we go to an astrologer to mitigate it, then we are trying to tamper with our karma, because that's exactly what an astrologer does. So he suggests some prayaschitta, karma kandya prayaschitta, by looking at our chart, because an astrologer can see an astrological chart only based on your karma. So when he sees, he will see only karma. He will not see the hand of Krishna, because he is not trained to see that. So he will definitely see some karmic reason for your suffering, because he is not capable of seeing Krishna's hands. Because no one can understand Krishna's plans. So what to speak of an astrologer, right? So he will see some karmic reason for your suffering, and he will say that, oh, you are suffering because of this, you are suffering because of this. so therefore you should do this, and you will think that, oh yeah, my suffering. So rather we are supposed to think Krishna is putting me in this suffering because he wants me to respond in a Krishna conscious way to this particular situation so that I go closer to his lotus feet. So rather than thinking along those lines, we are constantly absorbed in defeating suffering through adjusting my karma. So Krishna says, look, you are not at all understanding my signal. I am telling you, I am putting you in the situation, you respond favorably and you will take one step closer to my lotus feet. But what you are doing, I put you in a situation, you go to an astrologer and tell, some planet is controlling my life. Tell me which planet is controlling. So I will adjust it so that I can adjust it so that
Get over it.
I will get rid of suffering.
Mhm.
So now, so if you repeatedly do this, what will Krishna think? Krishna will think that, look, you decide whom you want to control, under whose control you want to be. See, I am willing to pull you out of the control of karma. I have already pulled you out. I am putting you into the situations so that you will respond in a Krishna conscious way and come closer to me. But now if you are choosing to be under karma, I will let you. So Krishna is actually responding to our free will only, right? Because free will that we are expressing through our actions. Yeah.
Okay, so therefore, yeah, so our choice, whether we are choosing the bhakti path or not, is really demonstrated by who we seek shelter of. I mean, even if, let's say, a person is doing all the items of sadhana, right? If they're doing all those items of sadhana, yet they are consulting astrologers during tough times, right? Then, and as you said, if they're repeatedly doing so, then they really, you can say, have not actually taken shelter of Krishna. They're still taking shelter of karma. And therefore, Krishna what will he do? He will stop orchestrating his life. He will withdraw and just allow karma to, even though that person is a sadhaka, he will stop, he will stop taking personal control over such a person's life.
Yeah, it may not be instantaneous. Krishna will also try to understand what is going on in your heart.
Yeah.
Because these are the problems with improper sambandha gyan. When you don't understand the sambandha gyan properly, when our sambandha gyan is incorrect, impure, then it leads to these kind of things. So if we rectify them in the right in the right association, then it is good. But if we don't rectify, then through our actions, then we are telling Krishna that I am happy with karma controlling my life, and I have figured out a way of overcoming this karma through all this karma kandya prayaschitta and these atonements and this, by adjusting the planets. So I have fairly good control of the finer controls, So this suffering due to this planet, I will adjust it, I have gained fairly good control over it and I am happy with this. Otherwise, Krishna's suffering, when Krishna puts into suffering, it can be a little bit whimsical. You cannot understand Krishna's plan, but you can understand the planetary motions the planet's plan you can understand. They are fairly predictable. But Krishna's plans are they can be unpredictable. So if you are more comfortable, just, dealing with navigating or dealing with the planets, then Krishna is fine. So if that's what you want, that's what you will get.
Okay, so basically it seems like the conclusion is that, just because a person might be performing devotional service and so on, that doesn't necessarily mean that Krishna will orchestrate his life, because that devotee, he might be relying more on astrology.
Yeah. Basically, see, astrology is it's a very bona fide science.
Yeah. No, I agree to that.
Yeah. Science. To take nothing away from it, but the point is, it is meant for those who are under the control of karma. So it is meant for those who are under the control of karma. It is a perfect science which is created by Krishna only.
Mm-hmm.
But whether its scope is within the life of devotees is the question on hand. Do devotees?
You said, can you repeat?
See, astrology is definitely a very bona fide Vedic science which is created by Krishna only. But whether its scope is within the life of devotees, that is the question on hand.
Mm-hmm.
So, because we should know, see, there are different medicines for different ailments. Okay. So we have to identify our ailment and take the appropriate medicine. So if the ailment is fever, then we take paracetamol. If the ailment is something else, we take different medicine. So similarly, for devotees, we should understand what to make out of devotees' suffering and what to make out of non-devotees' suffering. So the approach should be different. The approach is different because the source of suffering is different. Even though they may look exactly the same.
Yes.
They may look exactly the same. But you cannot conclude because karma is also invisible, Krishna's hands are also invisible. So therefore, we cannot conclude that suffering means karma.
Right.
For that, we have to learn to see through the eyes and eyes of the scriptures. Scriptures means devotees should learn through the eyes of the devotional scriptures, and the karma yogis, or those who are qualified for karma, they should see their suffering through the eyes of the dharma shastras. So appropriate scriptures. But if devotees are constantly trying to see through the eyes of the dharma shastras, then Krishna will say, "I'm sorry, I think you're confused about your affiliation. So you're confused about your self-identity. So while probably you're liking to call yourself a devotee, but probably you want to be free of my control. You want to be under the control of your karma only. So if that's what you want, that's what you get."
Okay. And just one last point is that, a person may go to an astrologer to get rid of their bad karma, for example, to figure out how to get rid of the malefic influence of some planet. But I mean, is that actually possible for them to?
Yeah.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it's possible.
Okay. Thank you very much for so patiently answering, Prabhu.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Okay, I think we have one last minute, and I think we should stop here. So next week we will start with the essay on Laulyam. So that is the sixth obstacle to progressing on the path of devotional service. So thank you all very much for your patient listening and your enthusiastic participation. It has till now been a quite enjoyable journey and fruitful journey for me and hopefully for you too. So we will continue this journey further starting from next week. We will start with the sixth essay on Laulyam. So thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur ki jai. Shri Bhakti Aloka ki jai. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.